Thanks everyone for being here, joining us on this very exciting panel that we're going to have. I will then now like to welcome our 4 distinguished panelists that are here with us today. His Excellency Mustafa Omar, President of the Somali Regional State of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. With that, I would like to give the floor to Your Excellency Mustafa Omar. Please, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, colleagues and participants of this panel discussion. It's my privilege to say a few things on the topic of disinformation and migration from the perspective of an African country, the second most populous African country, Ethiopia, which happens to also host close to 1 million people as migrants in Ethiopia, which also is the route through which a number of other African brothers and sisters use as a route when they are going for migration to Middle East, to Europe and other countries, and which also itself produces its share of migrants. So when I looked at the panel and the question, I reflected on the disinformation from the perspective of the migrant-producing country, mainly, because I felt the question was more related to the impact of disinformation in the host countries, xenophobia, crime, political implications, culture and identity-related challenges that migrants face in the destination countries. But as an Ethiopian and also from African perspective, I think that disinformation that has the highest impact on our communities is the one related on the opportunities related to migration, particularly on the expectations that are created by success stories of migrants, which tend to overstate the blessing and the successes of migrants in developed countries, but also understate the challenges and failures that migrants face along the routes, particularly when they go through irregular migration. So from that angle, I think the best way of handling this would be to find the right data on the opportunities, the right information, but also to be aware of the efficacy of data, or rather the inefficacy of data in this post-truth world when it comes to informing opinions about migrations. So as far as the developed country problem is concerned, I think the disinformation is related to the issues I raised earlier about the xenophobia, the political polarizations that we see in the West, in Western countries. And I think it's not only nowadays something that is about disinformation, but I think it's having some real political implications in the sense that in a lot of traditionally migrant hosting countries, the rise of right-wing political parties indicates that the impact has now gone beyond what we would normally expect it to be only something on the narratives. It's having a real consequence for people, with policies also affected because of the decisions that are made by politicians. And since this is the case, I think from our perspective, from developing country perspectives, the solution is to ensure that there are systems and structures and strategies to ensure that the demand for migration and the supply that migration-producing countries have are made to to link. And in that regard, I think the experience of Ethiopia with the establishment of labor information systems is instructive, because 2 years ago, we established a regional interministerial forum, which Ethiopia chaired for 2 years in East Africa. We also established the Ethiopian labor information system, and this has helped in most of the labor that used to go to the Middle East now to go regularly through channels that are traceable and legal. I can maybe share the figure. When this system was not in place, I think about 40,000, mainly unskilled women, were registered to have been going to Middle East. But with the establishment of this information system, which links the demand and supply, more than 300,000 has been registered. This means that because of the information provided, a lot of people have chosen the legal pathways. And of course, that reduces also the challenges that we face with regular migration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and also for bringing what are the challenges of this information at the countries of origins and the balance that is needed between the narratives of success stories versus the difficulties also that the migrants face in their journeys. And also for discussing this need of meeting demand and supply and having these conversations. So I would like now to give the floor back to Your Excellency, Mr. Mustafe Omer, please.
Thank you again. In my opening remarks, I mentioned that Ethiopia hosts close to 1 million migrants from neighboring East African countries and beyond. And regarding this information related to migration, we don't have a big issue in terms of the migrants that Ethiopia hosts, because the narrations about migration are rooted in our long-standing history and culture of receiving guests. Therefore, rather than being seen as a problem, migrants coming to Ethiopia are seen as a blessing for the country. There are a lot of tales in different historical contexts of migrants coming to Ethiopia in search of better life and security. The most famous being the hijrah, the first hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad from Arabia and his companions to Ethiopia, where they were hosted. So because of that, we are not dealing as such in terms of disinformation regarding on migrants. But I think the bigger issue in Ethiopia nowadays is the impact of irregular migration to Europe and Arabia through very dangerous routes. And rightly so, most of the discussion has focused on dissuading the youth from going through this dangerous path. And therefore, yes, the media has been a critical partner with for the government in the last couple of years. A lot of songs, a lot of dramas, a lot of plays have been produced, mainly warning the youth of the dangers along the routes they choose, and also highlighting the opportunities at home that they can exploit. So on this information, I think the media has been a good partner, but the focus has been more on irregular migration. In terms of the bigger issues, I think it's also true for a country like Ethiopia with a large labor force and with unemployment, high unemployment, particularly for the youth, who make up more than 65% of the labor force and of the country. The government have been trying to address the underlying causal factors as well, not only focusing on the dangers of irregular migration, but also understanding why people are going. And for that, I think it will be remiss if I don't mention the creation of a whole ministry for jobs and skills, the Ministry of Jobs and Skills, particularly focusing on skill development, job creation for the youth and women, and establishing information systems for regular migration, as I mentioned earlier. This has been the steps that the government has been taking because we have understood the reality that migration will be there. It's a human phenomenon. It has been there, and it will continue. So regularizing it and ensuring that people come through the right path is what the government has focused on. And I think on the bigger discussion later on, focusing on both the disinformation for the receiving countries and also the impact of disinformation on the originating country will give us the full picture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Omer, for that important response, bringing again why we need to work with partners in sharing information and the role of media that I think it's important through drama, warning the youth of Ethiopia about the challenges and also the opportunities they have at home and the efforts that the government is undertaking to address the root causes of the departure of all these young people, including inequality, lack of employment, and the efforts to address those challenges. Walter, back to you.
I do see a placard up from the representative of the Government of Canada. Stephanie, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you so much, panelists, for your comments and sharing of your experiences, insights. Canada has been, of course, very interested in balanced narratives for many years. We've contributed to the Global Forum for Migration and Development. We've contributed to the IOM conversations here as well. And I have two questions based on your comments. My first question is if you can share any insights on how to balance detecting and correcting misinformation or disinformation, but in a way that doesn't risk actually highlighting or spotlighting it so that it gets worse. We know from social media, the more hits, the more eyes, the better, and how high it goes, the algorithms in terms of the various social media companies, that makes a difference. So how do you balance, or how do you determine when do you go in and correct? But of course, recognizing that risk. And of course, I was thinking and reflecting on, and I think also, of course, the comments from His Excellency from Ethiopia in terms of how do you combat that disinformation.
I now would like to hear again from Your Excellency, Mr. Omer.
Thank you again, and I think it has been a refreshing discussion on the issue of migration and with a focus on disinformation. To combat that, I think data is a good starting point, but it may not be enough given the impact of social media, artificial intelligence, and very polarized political positions that usually inform our interpretations of data. Therefore, I think what's critical is not only to establish the right data, which is, of course, the necessary condition, but also to devise the right messages from the data, establish the facts, identify the strategies to rectify wrong narrations, and also identify the right stakeholders or the right actors to sell our messages. And in that regard, I think we can learn from successful advocacies we have done on different topics, climate being one, the combat against racism being another. I think we can follow the same templates which have worked by and large. I think on climate, engaging the youth to sell our narrations has helped, and I think the overwhelming perception globally is one that now endorses the scientific positions that we have on climate change. Equally on racism, the role of sport and celebrities has been very critical. On big events, messages have been passed. So our selection of the venues as well as the actors is really critical to ensure that our messages pass through. Therefore, this I think can help in terms of mitigating against the adverse impacts of disinformation on migration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Omer. And
Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, it's such a pleasure and honor to close this second session of the International Dialogue on Migration 2024 with sincere gratitude to all of you. So I'd like to start off with a round of applause, first for our amazing Master of Ceremonies, our friend, Michelle Klein-Solomon, for the amazing panelists, great discussion, as well as the really insightful interventions from all of you on the floor, as well as for all of you who have stayed with us till the very end. Also a round of applause.
And at that small stage, I'll meet you and we'll get started in introducing the Innovation Awards. Thank you all. See you over there.